Top 5 solo grind spots: Hex Sanctuary, Quint Hill, Gyfin Underground, Orc Camp, and Sakraya Abyssal Zone. Hex Sanctuary and Trolls are the ultimate in-game grind spots, commanding the best money per hour. These grind spots greatly depend on the price of Crystallized Despair. I expect the price of these despairs to go down in the future, and these grind spots to be not quite as powerful as they are today. Gyfin Underground brings in a lot of money from Tungrad accessories, but both the Tungrad belt and the Tungrad neck I expect to decrease in price over the long term because of Deboreka belt and Deboreka necklace. Orc Camp has the red shard, which is needed to make the cups to upgrade your accessories. Because of this, Orc Camp, despite its main money coming from trash loot, will probably always be viable to some degree because you'll need to grind here to get your cups and your accessory upgrades. Sakraya Zone equally has a unique item for frenzy drafts, and because of that, it will also be viable for the foreseeable future, even if they do release a new accessory ring which replaces the Tungrad ring. Seasoned players are probably thinking about now that I can't grind any of those grind spots, and you're right. Top 5 seasoned grind spots. Krtuga is the ultimate in-game grind spot for seasoned players. Bringing in a commanding 450 mil an hour, this was recently made possible by the addition of artifacts to Krtuga. This added about 50 to 100 mil per hour at the grind spot and has been insanely good for helping new players get the artifacts that they need to finish off their builds. Centaurs, famous for having a very low AP DP requirement but bringing in amazing income of 400 mil an hour, Cadres and Gahaz are excellent alternatives for very low effort, very low skill, and most classes can bring in a solid 300 mil an hour with Blue Scroll. Polyforest, our last on our tier list here, brings in a 300 mil an hour, but the DP requirements here are much higher than Gahaz, Cadres, and Centaurs. Polyforest, although being an amazing grind spot for an assortment of reasons, because of its high DP requirement, makes it a spot that I can't recommend to most brand new seasoned players. Top 5 grind spots for leveling up. I'll start with Polyforest. Polyforest brings in an amazing amount of EXP for new players who have no EXP buffs. About 60% of the EXP from this grind spot actually comes from Marty Stones. Marty Stones are available from an NPC called Wakitashi. Most people go to Old Wisdom Tree to buy their Marty Stones to proceed. Bashims is the best EXP grind spot for new players who are looking to get a lot of EXP buffs. If there's a 500% EXP buff or weakened EXP, or you're using your artifacts for 400% EXP bonus, or whatever other buffs you may be able to get your hands on, Bashims is the best grind spot for new players who are using a lot of these EXP buffs. The reason for this is 80% of Bashims' EXP comes from the monsters themselves, which scales with the EXP buffs. Marty Stones do not scale with EXP buffs. Mirrock Ruins has been one of my favorite spots in the game. I've grinded here for over 1,000 hours in the past, and I've leveled up several characters in the game to 62, 63, and beyond. Mirrock Ruins is a 3-man grind spot, so for seasoned players who are about 215 AP and above can go here in a 3-man group and struggle and slowly level up their characters to 62 and beyond. Mirrock Ruins becomes a solo grind spot for EXP once you're around 245 AP to 261 AP. This greatly depends on your class and your ability to play the game at a high level. Bloody Monastery is about 50% more EXP per hour than Mirrock Ruins solo. This is a noticeable difference, and it cannot be understated how significant this is. And then again, when we go to Gyfin, Gyfin again is another 50% more EXP than Bloody Monastery. Top 5 grind spots for using Agris. Gyfin Upper or Gyfin Temple. This is a 5-man grind spot which brings in a whopping 800 mil an hour when using Agris. Your Agris here burns at a rate of around 20,000 per hour, which gives you about 1 hour a day or about 5 hours if you have a full Agris bar. Jade Forest has been an amazing grind spot for getting the Lobreska helmet. It also is very good for Agris. Depending on your clear speed here, your Agris will last between 5 and 7 hours. This is a very good amount and brings the income of Jade Forest up to 700 mil an hour. It was very hard to talk about centaurs earlier without mentioning that Agris here is absolutely insane. People who grind here can clear for about 4 hours to 5 hours before running out of Agris and bring centaurs from 400 mil an hour to 700 mil an hour. This is an insane income for such a low AP-DP requirement. I cannot stress enough how important this is for new players to take advantage of centaurs' money per hour. Tauros, although very not fun to grind sometimes because of its CCs, is amazing with Agris Fever, and with the right party, it can be an amazing 650 mil an hour. We mentioned Kratuga earlier as a very good spot for seasoned players. It is also good for Agris. The reason being is the Agris consumption here is extremely low, and combined with the already good income of the grind spot, this is a very strong challenger to centaurs for money per hour at 600 mil an hour. Top 5 group grind spots. It's hard to talk about top 5 grind spots without mentioning Abandoned Monastery. Abandoned Monastery is a 2-man grind spot which commands an amazing 550 mil an hour with Blue Loot Scroll. This grind spot tends to be feast or famine. What this means is the grind spot tends to drop like $1 billion in accessories, or it might drop next hour no accessories. But on average, it's about 550 mil an hour with Blue Loot Scroll. We already talked about Tauros, but Tauros is an amazing 2-man grind spot. One thing that is to be said here, if you actually farm out the entire 100 embers that you need for the flame, the income of the grind spot actually goes up by 100 mil from 550 mil an hour to 650 mil an hour. This is actually a pretty big difference, but finding someone to grind with you long enough to get 100 embers for your flame can be a difficult task, and so this income here is generally around 550 mil an hour. We mentioned Gyven Upper for Agris Fever. This is a 5-man grind spot. With 5-man, it is hard to find a group for this at all times, especially during midnight hours or on servers where you have low population. Although this grind spot is absolutely incredible, the money per hour greatly differs. You can have a bad party and bring in 400 mil an hour, or you can have a good party, and without Agris Fever, you can get close to 700 mil an hour here. This makes this grind spot very volatile and hard to accurately judge on a group-to-group basis. Castle Ruins is nice because it's the lowest AP and DP requirement on this list. Olin Valley, honestly, is just a little outdated these days. Olin Valley started off as a 400 to 300 mil an hour grind spot, and at the time of release, this was actually very, very good. The income here greatly changes based on your party. Bonus round. This category includes everything else that couldn't fit into a full tier list of 5. Starting with scrolls. We have relic scrolls, forbidden books, peel of phase, voodoo dolls, fangs. All of these bringing very good income. Voodoo dolls and memory fragment scrolls bring in about 300 to 400 mil an hour. The fang brings in about $1 billion to $2 billion an hour for a 5-man group, and relics 5-man brings in about 500 to 600 mil an hour. Best grind spots for grinding out your skill points is Polyforest and Sulfur Mine. There are others, but skill points are not very big in the current game, and I really wouldn't worry about them too much. Karma. The best place to recover your karma in the entire game is Pilaku Gel. This grind spot easily recovers all of your karma in less than an hour. Sostens is a good alternative if you can't go to Pilaku Gel. Alright, that's everything. Thank you for watching. Glad to have you here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.